Hey, it's Larry. Welcome to Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. I've got a crazy show for you today. I have learned so much about what I understand Kim Clement to have said about the wealth transfer, and I'm going to tell you that just to get down to it, I think the wealth transfer is going to start next month. I think it's going to start at the end of July. I think it's going to start with a bang. I think it's going to be the Iraqi Dinar, and I don't think you're going to like what is going to follow it or even what's going to create it. And for those who are not prepared, it's going to be the most horrendous, overwhelming time that you've been on this earth, because it's going to be a very scary time. But if you're prepared, I think it's going to be amazing. And if you're a believer, and I hope you are, we are going to begin the outpouring of the Spirit of God. I didn't understand this timing. And he says that during the August, September, and October that I think is coming, he says it's the beginning of the outpouring of the Spirit of God that he's looked forward to and that heaven has looked forward to for millennia to pour out on the earth. And so it's that close. The thing is, I think the pandemonium that's going to accompany that is going to be overwhelming. So I make an intellectual, fervent desire to not stretch what I think Kim Clement would have said, but I've got some ideas. And you may not agree with the way I come to the ideas, but ideas are all based on houseofdestiny.org or kimclement.com. You go into the About section, you go to the database search, and I've done keyword searches, and I've learned that there's 3 years of wealth transfer that's going to happen. There's the first year where the 4 wells of blessing that we know about are going to come. And then there's the second year when the other 4 are going to be exposed. But there's so much in the big E that it actually is revealed it's going to take another year. And then that takes us to 2027. And I've got a story about why I believe, and it's just my opinion, that the wealth transfer is completed in 2027 and we're well on our way to recovery. You're going, Larry, you got my attention. Holy smokes, how come nobody else talks about this? Well, it's going to get better because I'm going to tell you month by month for the rest of this year what I believe God reveals very clearly that Kim Clement said. Now, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm not the prophet. I'm just the guy that's telling you what the prophet said. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Hey, I will admit it 100%. When you read Kim Clement's writings, he keeps talking about things that haven't happened yet. He talks about the big E, or he will talk about medical things in the future. He talks about the removal of debt. And so I know that there's people who aren't Christians who talk about a removal of debt, but most Christians don't believe that God is going to remove debt from America. Yeah, Kim Clement very specifically is very clear that he is going to remove debt from America. And he even tells us when he's going to do it. And this is the crazy thing I realized. And so I'm digging for these treasures. I notice this wealth transfer is going to last longer than I wanted to. And you go, well, why do you think it's going to last longer? Well, I've actually realized he talks about 3 different years of the wealth transfer. And you're going, really? Don't you? And you're thinking, I just want to get this thing over. Oh, I think I know where it starts. I think he tells us in coded words. He doesn't say exactly, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to tell you, but just let me understand. He is talking about the first 4, the dinar, precious metals, XRP, and Brixton metals. That's what Kim Clement clearly says. And then he doesn't really mention when they happen directly, but he does say, hey, in the summer, watch the price of gold, because that is going to mark what I begin to do. And there's going to be a great transfer of wealth during the summer. Watch the price of gold. Wow. So that's the first year, okay? And then he talks about between Brixton Metals, he mentions, I think it's 2 crowns, which is one of the 5 that he mentions. And he says a very interesting thing. He says, oh, and by the way, between these 2 things, you should be looking at Apple, because Apple phone is going to begin to be taken over by a competitor. Their market share is going to radically decline, and a new competitor is going to enter the marketplace. It's like, what in the world? Who talks like that? Who would think that Apple is going to get dominated? But Kim Clement says in the middle of the wealth transfer, that's going to happen. And so that, I say, is toward the transition. And the next year, he makes it really clear, you need to get ready for the big E. And, he even says what month the big E is revealed. He goes, it starts in February, and it gets revealed in March. And by May, you better have invested in it or you're going to miss it. And so we know the big E is not this year, right? I think it's next year. And he goes on to say that the big E is full of 5 different kinds of new energy. And he goes, don't say it's ethanol. He goes, these are new technologies that are going to happen. They're from microbes that are in the soil. They're in garbage. And somebody's going to learn how to process them. And he actually says even a Christian person is going to be able to patent this, and it's going to bring tremendous wealth to the church. He even makes reference that this is going to happen on the west coast of the United States. I think that's all fascinating. And so I'm like, man, I know this is going to happen. And so I'm thinking, that's why I got really sad earlier in the year, because I knew about that timing. I knew that would be an indicator of the big E, but I didn't really realize how clear it was that the big E is in the second year. And then I found a very clear reference that, hey, the first year the big E rolls out, because there's 5 different forms of big E. He goes, in the first year, this one's going to roll out. But then really interestingly, he says in the next year, 4 more forms of the big E are going to roll out. So Kim Clement describes by the seasons the first year, the second year, and the third year of the big E. And you're going, well, hey, that's great. Just when is it going to start? Well, let me tell you. I think I know when it ends, because Kim Clement was taken in the spirit, and he was very precise about this, a lot different than any other time. And he said, hey, I'm taken to 2027. And it's a very emotional thing, because he saw this girl who was the daughter of and I think he was kind of halfway in heaven. I think he was looking down on earth. He was with this girl who died, had all kinds of complications, and he just starts crying. It's a big emotional time. But he said that he saw the manifestations of the 4 unknown wealth transfer. Now, nobody else has ever said it the way that I'm saying it, but because I recognize and I've studied it so much, it took me hundreds of hours to write this book, but I feel like I'm supposed to write another book. So I recognized in 2027, it's like Kim Clement's basically saying, all these things that I saw, they were done. That's in 2027. Well, wait, Larry, you just said there's 2027, it's all done, right? Well, in the wealth transfer, there's the first year, the second year, and the third year it rolls out, and then it's all done. 2027, 2026, 2025, 2024. Larry, are you telling me that the wealth transfer starts in 2024? Yeah, I am. And he says some very interesting things about how it's going to roll out. So if the wealth transfer is going to start in 2024, it's got to start with one of the 4 things that we already know about. But he already told us that the 4th one, Brixton Metals, that's late in the year. And that's when the Apple phone is going to go. So there's really only precious metals, XRP, and I'm going to say other cryptocurrencies, and then the dinar. And you're going, Larry, you got my attention. Holy smokes, how come nobody else talks about this? Well, it's going to get better because I'm going to tell you month by month for the rest of this year what I believe God reveals very clearly that Kim Clement said. Now, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm not the prophet. I'm just the guy that's telling you what the prophet said. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Hey, I will admit it 100%. But I will tell you, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, but I'm personally, but I believe what I'm supposed to do is raise up an army of God-fearing people who will use money to help build and expand the kingdom of God. And I believe even right now, some of you are hearing this and saying, I want to be a participant in this. God has been telling me this. God has been showing me through dreams. I need to be a part of this. So when is it going to happen, Larry? Well, Kim also says, when you look into these things, he never really gives specific about precious metals, other than in the summer, watch the price of gold. And during that summer, as gold is worth watching, apparently, there's going to be a transfer of wealth. I'm going to show you this on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. What are the signs that Kim Clement said are going to accompany right before it goes up? Well, he doesn't say precious metals when they're going to really happen, except during the summer, they're going to watch them. My silver investments have gone up like 30% since January 1st. That's a good run. Gold has done very well too. I don't know what gold is, maybe 20% this year. Gold is worth watching, but it's still the spring. It's not the summer. I'm going to tell you, watch what happens to gold in 2 weeks when it turns to summer. I think it's going to be crazy. Well, there's other indicators that Kim Clement talked about. He kept talking about, because see, when Kim Clement started prophesying about the dinar, there's a lot of people my age, older people, who went out and bought the dinar. And I'm talking in the 90s, they started doing it. And Kim Clement apparently took a lot of blowback about all these people who are holding the dinar, because he keeps talking about, when he mentions the dinar, for those of you who are holding the dinar, he goes, be careful, because there's brokers that are going to come, and when the revaluation, which is what he talks about, happens, you need to be careful. He says, there's unscrupulous brokers. And I think this is a very good warning, because I'm going to tell you just bluntly, you don't need to sign up with some stupid phone number or some stupid broker. But there are those who hold the dinar. Why do you, Larry, keep saying about those who hold the dinar? Because I'm going to show you a crazy prophecy. But let me tell you about why the dinar is so interesting. Let's look at what the dinar, what context, when is the dinar going to happen? Because I'm going to make the argument that the dinar is first. And I'm going to have to do that from sitting over there at my computer. So let's take a look at the dinar. What's the context of when Kim Clement talks about the dinar? As a result, this came to me 2 or 3 days ago. There's going to be provision in the world because of what's opened up over the Middle East. Now that sounds crazy, but there's going to be provision. There's going to be blessings. So this one, I think you're going to believe me, but nobody else would tie this to the dinar because they don't know Kim's writing good enough. Because he took a lot of guff for people holding on to the dinar for so long. And he often uses the phrase, have you held on to the dinar now that you're holding on to it? Well, listen to this one. There's a distribution of wealth for those that have held on to it. It doesn't make sense about anything else except, is that gold or is that XRP? No, it's for those that have held on to the dinar. There will be a distribution of wealth, and this shall bring about a recovery. A recovery. I wonder what the recovery would need to be from. Could it be that the whole stock market is stressed to such a huge degree that it takes the dinar to rescue the stock market? So I've talked about this. A lot of people have talked about this. There's acknowledgement that the Dow, that the stock market, that Wall Street is going to scream a time of the dinar. And they talk about the Dow going to 20,000 points. That would be catastrophic at this point. Everybody thought it was going to be the Dow when it rises to 20,000, which actually happened during the term of Donald Trump in 2017. But no, it's going to be when the Dow crashes to 20,000. But what would be the result of the Dow crashing at 20,000? I have excitement for you, says the Spirit. Though you are surrounded by fear, doom, and gloom, I have certain truths. My people are going to prosper, and I'm going to tell you it's going to begin. So during the time of extreme doom, gloom, fear, there's prosperity for the people of God who believe in the dinar and exercise it. Here's an interesting one. I'm stretching it, but follow me. I think you'll believe this. Kim gets a little off track here, but God's telling him and reminding him, hey, there's a sign. There's one thing I saw. I want to tell it to you. It's in Code Breakers. It's something to share. It's going to be about the dinar. And it's something about the NASDAQ. I wonder what would happen to the NASDAQ if the Dow went to 20,000. Wow, could it close? I know we just can't fathom that the stock market would close down. But if you watch it and you know it, it's so corrupt. What if God was just going to let it burn to the ground? Instead of fixing it, he just started a whole new one. Well, this one gives credence to that idea because it talks about during the time of the big E, you're going to be able to make millions of dollars, but you need to get ready because the stock market's going to open up and NASDAQ is going to open up. He gives warning there's going to be things opening up in public places that God says, I'm going to pour out and give you what is rightfully yours. The world is going to be nervous and they will be so scared because of all the money they lost in the stock market. But God is saying to you who are wise, you who are prudent, you who are ready to invest in the big E, jump in and invest. I think now you might believe me that the dinar is going to be the thing that initially saves the stock market and brings liquidity, which later launches crypto and metals. I'm going to tell you what I've observed that he said, but I'm going to tell you what I think. And he said crazy things about money because the whole reason I wrote this book is I studied what Kim Clement said about wealth and investing and millions and billions. And you may not realize that Kim Clement prophesied, I want to raise up billionaires, but my people don't have faith for it. Only 1% of my church can even fathom that I want to raise up billionaires. That's true. That's what Kim Clement said. And, I think Kim was as shocked as we are when we hear that, because that's not the message that we hear from our current church leaders so often. They feel guilty about being influential, successful, high-income believers. Well, I don't feel bad about it. In fact, I wish there were more. He doesn't say, when he talks about that summer of great wealth, he doesn't say it's only going to come through precious metals. I really think in context, he's talking about in the summer, this summer, crypto, I think, is going to absolutely rip. That's my understanding, okay? So, and then along with that, precious metals. Well, what's going to bring that about? What's going to happen before that? He talks about America and our currency, and he talks about Europe and their currency, the euro. He goes, I see the euro getting a haircut. I don't know what this means, but I hear from the Lord, I see the euro getting a haircut. And for some reason, America's currency is really benefited by that. But when a country gets a haircut, that means their bond market falls apart. And usually that means their stock markets are about ready to fall apart. When a country gets a haircut, it's like, hey, you put 10,000 in, you're expecting 14. Sorry, you're going to take the haircut. You're going to get 7,000 now. And you can have 7,000 or you can have nothing. And people are freaking out. They're like, I'll take my 7,000. I invested 10 3 years ago, but I only get 7. I'll take it and run. I'm going to invest in something else. That's a haircut. That means the capital markets are falling apart. That means bank failures. That means bank runs. What does that mean to us? That means that people start standing in line outside of banks like they were in China during the COVID era. And the Chinese military, if you remember, had to bring in tanks because so many Chinese were so mad that their banks were shut down. They couldn't believe it because many Oriental nations are huge savers. That's not so much in America, but we do leave our money in the banks in America. And a lot of Americans have a lot of invested in the stock market. Yeah, well, watch what's going to happen. Because Kim Clement also talks about there's going to be tremendous bank failures. And you're going, oh, Larry, come on. Those already happened in '08. No, he specifically said bank failures. I see 2 bank failures coming. And he even describes them. And you go, well, how do we know this is the one? He says the craziest thing. The one that's going to accompany this time, he goes, I see a Damascus Road conversion for 3 networks. I see news media begin to tell the truth. And you're going, well, holy smokes, that hasn't happened in the last decade, maybe 20 years, probably 30 years. The media hasn't told the truth, but you're telling me in the middle of this wealth transfer creating bank failure, 3 media companies are going to begin to tell the truth. That's how you'll know. So we're going to see. I'm going to tell you one other one that's I think we're going to see Japan go first, and other prophetic voices have talked about Japan, and I think we're going to be shocked what happens in the turmoil that happens. Then I think we're going to see the euro fail, and we're going to go, well, that's not going to happen to us. Well, when that happens, you better be getting ready. If you haven't already got ready, I think it's going to be so sad for people, because when this happens, I mean, this isn't what Kim Clement said. This is what I think and what I know, because I've been through bank failures. I don't know if you've been through one. I've been bankrupt, so I know what it's like to be rich, and I know what it's like to be broke. And it sucks to be broke. What really sucks is when the bank takes your money. And if you've ever... I'll just tell you, I know. And the thing is, it's going to happen to millions and millions of people. That's what's going to happen. That's what I think. I might be wrong. I'm not telling you I'm a prophet. I'm telling you, get ready, because our currency is on fire. If you haven't realized it, I don't think our currency is going to last another year. And Chris Reeves had this prophecy of Johnny Cash coming to him, and a $50 bill gets ripped, a third of it, and then another third. I'm going to reference that video at the bottom. We'll get ready for the $50 bill, the first third of it, to get ripped off. And then it's going to happen pretty quickly after that. We're going to watch it in Japan, I think. We're going to watch it in Europe, and then it's going to happen here. And then you go, well, what else is going to happen, Larry? I mean, you said you were going to tell dates. Tell me some dates. Well, Kim Clement describes a really bad, it's very interesting he did this, a very bad August, September, October. And it's really bad. And then he describes a November, and he says, my spirit is going to be poured out upon America for 4 years. The Holy Spirit is going to be poured out upon America in a way that the whole world will be envious, but it will quickly go to the whole world. And there's going to be an outpouring of God that's going to happen, I believe, this November. And I think it's going to be the fulfillment of what Bob Jones prophesied about Kansas City Chiefs winning. And it's funny and actually frustrating that they've won 3 times now and it hasn't happened. But Kim Clement says, in this November, I'm going to pour out my spirit, and it's going to be poured out for 4 years. And there's going to be a restoration of America, and everything that has been stolen is going to be recovered. And my Spirit is going to be poured out, and there's going to be a revolution in education, in finance, in government. And he just goes on and on. It's so amazing. But he describes 2 August, September, Octobers. One, economically, things are fantastic. I don't think that's this year. I think that's 2025. It starts to round the corner. Here's what he says about August, September, October. And I think this totally makes sense. It's not what I want to hear. Kim Clement's prophecy says August, they're going to say it was the worst August in the history of America. Another one says they're over August, September, October, pandemonium, pandemonium, pandemonium. That's what they're going to say about August, September, October. It's pandemonium. But that's the perspective of earth. And from heaven, it's the most exciting time ever, because this is the beginning of the outpouring of the glory of God. And so it's really interesting. He makes this analogy that heaven is excited, but on earth, it's going to really stink, because it's going to be a horrendous August in one prophecy. Another prophecy says pandemonium for August, September, October. But that's the beginning of the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. That ties in exactly with in November, it all stops. It's like, in fact, he makes a prophecy about Thanksgiving, about Halloween. He goes, wow, my people are going to have relief. Some will say, we get to celebrate Halloween. And Kim Clement goes, no, seek God. Hey, thanks for watching that. And you might be going, I really want to know about your next book, when you get that done. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to get it done until a lot of this stuff is over. I'm shooting to get it done in September, but I really feel like you're going to lose a lot of potential investing resources if you don't jump in on the first one. And you might go, well, what's the first one about? Well, it's about a person that comes into a whole bunch of money that's never had a lot of money. And that might be you, or maybe you've had a lot. Maybe your family's multimillionaires. And, it tells what the 8 wells of blessing are in very strong detail. You won't miss them if you follow what Kim Clement said. And it's a strategy of investing that's very diversified. As a successful person who, I'm a real estate developer, and I've got a number of projects, and that's what I live off of. And I think it's a brilliant plan that God has given Kim. I mean, it's beyond the mind of a man. And I think it's a plan for his end time church. And God has his hand on America, and this is not going to take us out. Just like Israel, God has his hand on Israel, and Israel is forever. That's what Kim says all the time. Well, thanks so much for watching today. If you'd like to learn more about what Kim Clement had to say about the 8 wells of blessing, please consider my book, The Parable of the Dinar. It came out last year, and it's available on Amazon, just $15. I pay the shipping. Check out the reviews. Please subscribe and like this video as well. Thank you.